coming out tonight. I'm going to ask everybody to please give us a little bit here. We're going to be able to start recording. We already started. Perfect. We have a short council meeting before general committee begins, so I'll just ask everyone to give us the the appropriate conduct for that. And I'm going to call the City Council meeting to order for October 9th at 6:50 p.m. Our student mayor this week is Krista Potestiosina, representing St. Peter's Catholic Secondary School. You're here with us tonight, so thank you, Worship, for joining us for these meetings. We have no confirmation of minutes, awards, or recognition, reports from officers, committee reports, but we do have a direct motion this evening. So I'm going to call on Deputy Mayor Thompson with regards to the motion there.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Kungl. Support for the County of Simcoe application for homeless and addiction recovery treatment, the Heart Hub. Sorry. That the mayor provide a written correspondence on behalf of the Barrie City Council in support of the County of Simcoe application to the Province of Ontario for homelessness addiction treatment hub in order to respond to the community complex service needs, including but not limited to homelessness, substance use, and mental health.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. It is moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson and seconded by Councillor Kungl that the mayor provide written correspondence on behalf of the City of Barrie Council in support of the County of Simcoe's application to the Province of Ontario for a homelessness and addiction treatment hub in order to respond to the community's complex service needs, including but not limited to homelessness, substance use, and mental health. Are there any questions or concerns with regards to this motion that's on the floor? Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Just one quick question. What's the next steps in a process like this? I just actually had a resident reach out, so I'm just kind of wondering what the runway is.
Are you speaking in regards to the actual Heart Hub application, or are you speaking in terms of if we're successful in receiving the funding?
Thank you. If we're successful, basically if the letter that you send, they come back and say, thank you, we, the province of Ontario, have decided to choose Barrie as a location. I know there's long runway between having a open facility to that, but I'm just had some questions about kind of that middle stage.
Yeah, so it's actually not the City of Barrie that will be receiving the funding. It would be the County of Simcoe. Inside of the request for funding, it says that the local service manager needs to be the one who's leading it, which is, in this case, the County of Simcoe. It's doing so with the partnership of both the Royal Victoria Health Centre and the Canadian Mental Health Association as partners for physical and mental health. And I believe that they have a ton of other internal partners in terms of referrals and diversion to housing, whether that's transitional housing or more permanent. So we won't actually, as a council, receive an answer. It'll be the County of Simcoe that receives the answer, and they will be obviously the leads on the project.
Perfect. So it'll be the County of Simcoe leading any potential public consultations or feedback processes in terms of locations and sourcing sites and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions or comments from members of council? Seeing none, all those in favor? It carries unanimously. We have no presentations, but we are at inquiries. We have a couple of minutes before general committee's set to begin, so why don't we deal with the inquiries at this point, if there's any inquiries or announcements. Any inquiries around the table? Seeing none, any announcements, Deputy Mayor?
I have none. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Rietma.
I just have one, Mr. Mayor, and I just wanted to applaud our engineering staff, especially Craig Thompson and Jeff Henry. Last night at the Conservation Authority, we gave out awards, and our engineering staff received an award for their work on the on the Curry Street stormwater facility. And that storm pond has now been reconstructed and is much better in terms of reducing phosphorus into our lake. And also, they're planting 1,700 trees and shrubs in that facility. So kudos to Bella and his staff for that award.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Councillor, for bringing those greetings. And as you're the chair, did you get to help present to our staff?
I did, in fact, yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I just wanted to share a little bit of great news. So with respects to TIFF, Talk is Free Theatre, there is a performance actually happening tomorrow that I'm excited to attend, but I wanted to draw attention that it's their 750th performance of Tales of an Urban Indian staged on a moving city bus, and that is happening tomorrow. So very unique and innovative, but also great to see theatre taking an approach with our local transit. So very keen to see that, but thanks to all those involved in local theatre.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. That was, when it was first launched, I actually worked for Talk is Free Theatre, and we had booked 2 weeks of the city bus to be able to go around. And as you can imagine, you have a pretty limited audience that you can have on one city bus. And they ended up running it, I think, for 4.5 months. Because it was so popular. It was such a good local success story for theatre. Any other announcements? Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, and through you, just because we're running ahead of schedule, I'll take a minute here just to remind Ward 10 residents and to encourage you, if you're looking to stay informed in all things City Council, that you can sign up for my weekly newsletter that I send out before every General Council meeting and every council meeting, highlighting key agenda items and anything relevant to Ward 10. So just a reminder that you can sign up for that on the website.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. Any other announcements? Oh, back to Councillor Kungle.
Sorry, I was quick to move along, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity. If anyone does have the time, this is the time of year that our Barrie Legion 147 is looking for volunteers for the Poppy campaign. So if you do have a moment, you can join me in Ward 3 at some locations, but also across the city. Please reach out to Barrie Legion 147. They are located just off Ferris Lane.
Perfect. And this week is Fire Prevention Week. Barrie Fire and Emergency Services will be visiting various local schools and providing some educational materials and opportunities for our young people. For more information, please visit barrie.ca/FPW, as in Fire Prevention Week. It's 6:59. We're about to go into General Committee. I'll say what I was going to say at City Council at General Committee, that it's the season opener for the Leafs, so go Leafs go. And if you're a Habs fan, that's too bad for you. So we're going to actually end the recording. No? Oh, you have to, yes, sorry. Deputy Mayor, I jumped ahead of you.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Courser. Leave be granted to introduce the following bill, and this bill be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Bill 113.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for keeping me on track. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Courser, the confirmation bylaw, that leave be granted to introduce the following bill, and this bill be ready first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Any questions or comments with regards to the confirmation bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? It carries. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Councillor Harvey, Councillor Negussi, all those in favor? It carries unanimously. So we're going to now we can move right in. We don't need to stop the recording and start again? We're good. Okay, perfect. So we're going to move right in. If you just give me one moment here. So I now call the General Committee meeting to order for October 9th, 2024 at 7 p.m. This meeting is being held in person and electronically in accordance with the Municipal Act. The first item on the agenda is the consent agenda For the consent items, I'll read out the title associated with the recommended motions printed on the agenda, and members of General Committee may ask that an item be held to discuss the matter further. If an item is not held, the motion is deemed to be approved on consent. No further discussion of the item will take place at General Committee, and the recommended motions will go forward to the next City Council meeting for consideration. The reports of advisory, which have a couple of items inside of them, we'll do on the way through to the consent agenda. So 5.1 is the community safety meeting for September 25th to be received. Councilor Morales, do you have an update for us that you can provide?
Yes, I do. September 25th, you said, right?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. So at the meeting, we had two main presentations. One was from Lucy Gowers, the executive director of Youth Haven, about their essentially new build-out on Wellington Street to house Barrie's youth. So that was a really good presentation, gave us an update as to some of the opportunities and kind of things they're dealing with the construction, as well as more funding opportunities. And then finally, we had a presentation from Michelle Banfield, the Executive Director of Development Services, and her staff in terms of basically traffic. And it gets complicated, but like traffic collision history, traffic calming signage, illumination, different initiatives that are going, what's working, what's not. And that was kind of a presentation to members of council. And then, my apologies, we had another presentation, which was Barrie Police came and presented their perspective on traffic safety, as well as their data collection, their analysis of that data, and then their Citizens on Patrol program, which has been really successful, and kind of how that can be leveraged in different wards, as well as their Citizens on Patrol, the Speed Watch, and the Noise Watch, and traffic initiatives. So we then also kind of received the report, the memo from Ms. Banting from bylaw. So basically that's property standards, and we've asked questions, made some comments about the increase of calls, not only of calls, but of new properties that have been proactively addressed. I believe it's in the mid to high 20s as a percentage, and then received the standard reports from different reference committees and advisory committees, from advisory committees. And then finally, recommendation was accepted to hire a consultant to provide, to support the review and revision of the community safety and well-being program, as well as to another motion accepted to have an additional membership for the composition of that committee.
Thank you, Councillor. So we'll go through those two motions, see if either of them are held. The first one being CSC 1, budget expenditure approval to hire consultant. That's approved on consent. Additional membership, CSC 2. That's approved on consent. We'll now move to 5.2, the report of the Infrastructure and Community Investment Committee dated October 2nd, 2024. Councillor Hamilton, if you could provide us an update from the meeting.
Thank you, and through you. Infrastructure Committee met on October 2nd. Everyone was present. We received two presentations that evening. The first was in relation to the 2025 Asset Management Plan. We reviewed the current status of the project, current service levels, and proposed future levels of service. And the second presentation was concerning the parks, horticultural, forestry. They provided a service level review for us, which was very informative, looking at what the current service levels were within our parks and what proposed service levels could be to make sure that we are utilizing our resources as effectively, efficiently, in the most financially conscious way. And you will see a number of recommendations from those two from that presentation on the agenda this evening. And the final motion you will see is in relation to the sports tourism strategy as well.
Thank you, Councillor, for the update. So we'll go with the motions that came from there. ICIC 1, the sports tourism strategy. It's approved. ICIC 2, parks, horticulture, and forestry service level review. That's approved. And we'll go into staff reports, which is number 6, ACC 001-24.
Hold, please.
Held by Deputy Mayor Thompson. DEV 040-24. That's approved on consent. DEV 041-24. That's approved on consent. Business plan status at end of June 30th, 2024. It's approved on consent. FAC 005-24, Barrie Performing Arts and Event Center. That's approved on consent. That's to receive the staff report for information purposes. INF 006-24, property acquisition, Whiskey Creek Culvert and channel improvements, the Boulevard to Brennan Avenue in Ward 8. It's approved on consent. Confidential personal information matter, committee appointment communities in Bloom. This is LCS 005-24. And that is approved on consent. That means the only item that we'll be discussing this evening is the waterfront public consultation feedback. Deputy Mayor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I'll put the motion on the floor, I believe, or the report, I guess, on the floor. And with that, I have an amendment. That notwithstanding previous council decision concerning the location for the Performing Arts Center and multi-use sports field, the following be undertaken. That in light of work completed to date by HPA on the Barrie Performing Arts Center programming and concept design, final report, and notwithstanding the requirements of a procurement bylaw, HPA be retained to complete a schematic design for a new performance arts center at the current Sea Cadet site at an estimated cost of $200,000 being funded from the theater reserve, and that the design be prepared with the following considerations. Approximately 4,500 square foot facility that includes both a large 600 seat, smaller 250 seat performance space. The facility be designed with a maximum total building cost of $65 million in hard and soft construction costs for the building itself, fitted out with all seats, audio, visual components, and B, that staff undertake the requirement site due diligence, including both but not limited geotechnical investigations to deem the feasibility and utilization of the current Sea Cadet site and any required surrounding city lands for a new performance arts center at the cost as such investigation to a maximum of $375,000 to be funded by the theater reserve. C, that a full-time capital project manager be retained for the corporate facilities immediately to coordinate the site due diligence investigation and schematic design, with the position be funded from the FC 1138 Performing Arts Center redevelopment capital project theater reserve. And D, that staff report back to general committee with the results and due diligence work, schematic designs, and the estimate required to site works and potential implication plan. Also, that staff retain a consultant and an estimated cost of $250,000, with 30% of the funding development charges, 20% from the tax capital reserve, and half of the funding secured from cash in lieu of park reserve, to prepare a design concept costing to locate a multi-purpose sports field at the central secondary school site to ensure that the field meets the minimum size requirements to accommodate a sports field of this nature and minimizes impact to surrounding areas, and report back to general committee. 2, that the Sea Cadets Parade Ground be removed as one of the uses for the multi-purpose field, and staff provide a concept including cost for locating a drill square with hard surface to the west of the John Hayter South Shore Center as an extension of the parking lot, and report back to general committee. 3, that development services staff prepare a design concept to locate a passive park east of the Allendale train station to a minimum of 2 acres of cut grass, to allow overflow parking for historic events that occur on the property and accessible walkways through the naturalized area, and report back to General Committee with a concept and cost. You want me to repeat that?
Yeah, say that twice. Okay. That notwithstanding previous council decisions concerning the locations for a performing arts center and a multi-use sports field, the following be undertaken. 1A, that in light of the work completed to date by Harari Pontarini Architects on the Barrie Performing Arts Center Programming and Concept Design Final Report, and notwithstanding the requirements of the Procurement Bylaw, HPA, be retained to complete a schematic design for a new performing arts center at the current Sea Cadet site at an estimated cost of $200,000 to be funded from the Theatre Reserve, and that the design be prepared with the following considerations. An approximately 45,000 square foot facility that includes both larger, a 600 seat, and a smaller 250 seat performance spaces. The facility be designed with the maximum total building cost of $65 million in hard and soft construction costs for the building itself, including fit out of all seating and audio-visual components. 1B, that staff undertake the required site due diligence, including but not limited to geotechnical investigations to determine the feasibility of utilizing current Sea Cadet site and any required surrounding city lands for a new performing arts center, and the cost of such investigations to a maximum of $375,000 be funded from the Theatre Reserve. C, that a full-time capital project manager be retained by corporate facilities immediately to coordinate the site due diligence, investigations, and schematic design work, and the position be funded from the FC 1138 Performing Arts Center Redevelopment Capital Project Theatre Reserve. And D, that staff report back to General Committee with the results of the due diligence and schematic design, as well as the estimated required site works and a potential implementation plan. Two, that staff retain a consultant at an estimated cost of $250,000 with 30% of the funding from development charges, 20% from the tax capital reserve, and half of the funding source from the Cash and Lieu Parkland Reserve to prepare a design concept and costing to locate a multi-sports field at the central secondary school site to ensure that the field meets the minimum size requirements to accommodate a sports field of this nature and minimize the impacts of the surrounding area, and report back to General Committee. 3, that the Sea Cadets Playground be removed as one of the uses for the proposed multi-use sports field, and staff provide a concept including costs for locating a drill square with hard surface to the west of the John Hayter South Shore Center as an extension to the parking lot, and report back to General Committee. 4, that Development Services staff prepare a design concept to locate a passive park east of the Allendale train station to include a minimum of 2 acres of grass cut to allow for overflow parking for historical events that will occur on the property, and accessible walkways through the naturalized area, and report back to General Committee with the concept and costing. And sorry, I'm just going to fix one thing. I now see, Deputy Mayor, what you're asking me to fix. It's east, not of the Allendale train station, but east of the General John Hayter South Shore Center. So just read that last one out again so that we can make sure that we have the correct piece. That the Development Services staff prepare a design concept to locate a passive park east of the John Hayter South Shore Center to include a minimum of 2 acres of grass cut area to allow for overflow parking for historical events that will occur on the property, and accessible walkways through the naturalized area, and report back to General Committee with the concept and costing. And Deputy Mayor, I'm going to give you the floor, but just before I do, I'd like to recognize, I don't usually do this in the middle of a meeting, but Marshall, if you could please stand up. And everyone, if you can give him a thank you and a round of applause. And Marshall, you had a major support as well from Mr. Scott. I don't know if I see him here this evening. Wonderful. So, Mr. Scott, you can't be here tonight, but thank you as well for all the time and effort that was put in as well. I believe that means the floor is yours, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall, and you took my first line. First of all, I'd like to thank Marshall for taking the time and doing this, presenting the report as a volunteer, and I appreciate that, and so does council. And I can imagine there were times when you wondered why you got into this. So, I believe this report is very thoughtful and well put together, with lots of consultation and engagement from all stakeholders. I also really like to thank Mayor Nuttall's leadership on this file for reaching out to Marshall to ask him to take on this task. We need to remember this all started with the relocation of the Sea Cadets to allow them to thrive in our community and participate on our water in a safe manner. I know Mayor Nuttall has had lots of meetings with so many members of our community to work through the issues, and I'm pleased with where we have landed. Understanding that some of the conversations were difficult, I believe as a community we have reached a great place with a clear consensus on the vision and the path forward. Thank you to staff in Access Barrie for leading the communication and consulting with our residents and with the development services and gathering the input from our residents. This started as a long-standing issue for the safety of our young sailors and has translated into a lot greater aspects to all corners of our downtown. Moving the Sea Cadets has been discussed without resolve for 30 years. Building a theater in our downtown with close proximity to restaurants and bars on Dunlop Street would allow for a better experience. And moving the proposed location of the theater allows for fire bells to ring from Fire Station 1 will also make a better theater experience. Allowing all residents to enjoy some of our naturalized areas of our waterfront while maintaining the beauty it is. And last but not least, we have attracted interest from a multinational organization to have conversations about sports in Barrie and invest in our city. I believe with these amendments and the strong leadership of Mayor Nuttall and Council, we have reached a great place to move forward, creating an even more incredible waterfront and thriving downtown. So, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm going to go to Councillor Harris, and I have Councillor Morales. I'm going to go to Councillor Nixon right after because of his ward, and I had promised that earlier, just to be clear. Councillor Harris.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Nuttall, and well done, Deputy Mayor Thompson, on reading all of that verbiage. So lots of people to thank, and I think one thing that we sometimes forget is this issue quietly came to the City Council a year ago, and certainly 5 months ago was really heightened with the next step in the conversation about primarily the Sea Cadets, but then the kind of continuation of that into the multi-purpose turf field that was proposed for South Shore. Certainly, as General Committee, it's not over yet tonight, but I really do appreciate where we've landed, and as also everybody, I think, would be remiss not to thank Marshall. So I'll take my turn. Thank you, Mr. Green, for the work you've done. And there's lots of people to thank. I think for me, when this came to the table, obviously people know my position on this from the beginning. But it was very easy, and it was informed by the residents of Ward 8. And many of you are here tonight. Now, if I thank you, I'll forget somebody, so I won't, but I can see some of you. And I want to thank you for really taking a positive and productive approach to presenting a case that something could be done differently and that we could land somewhere else. And certainly that wouldn't have been successful without members of council who took a lot of interest in listening and learning about what could be and why this might not be the best place. And Mayor Nuttall, you led that as far as our mayor. You reached out to Marshall, and that was where things really started to get exciting. So that wouldn't have happened if not for you. So thank you for that. And yeah, I've been to a lot of meetings. I think obviously Deputy Mayor Thompson, who's always willing to engage with residents and have conversations, was at events with me, Councillor Corser, and I know that my bordering neighbor at Ward 10, Councillor Hamilton, was at 3 different events with the community and listening and understanding. And, you know, I'll be honest, I've said to some people privately, I thought that multipurpose field wouldn't get built. I really did. Just because I thought there would be more information and more opportunities. And now we sit here with an incredible report, a lot of exciting opportunities. And also, it's good to see the theater reserve getting utilized, because that's why we started it 5 years ago, that it would someday be able to help manage the costs of an investment that we just don't have now. We don't have a theater in our city. So that's something, and that's where I first met Mr. Green, was on the Performing Arts Center Task Force, where he volunteered again his skills and interest in our city. So thank you for that as well. So I'm excited about the report, the opportunity that presents for our city. As a sports lover, I mean, it was hard not to vote for a sports field when all these wonderful young soccer lovers were here advocating for that. But I always hoped there would be a better option for the sports community. That field that would be on the lakeshore would have been a compromised version. And what we can do now, and what's happened with opportunities that are presenting now, is it won't be a compromised version of a multipurpose turf field. It'll be a really great version that will stand the test of time, and that we'll enjoy and be proud of for many years. So thank you to everybody, members of council, for being open and reflective and engaging in this process. And thank you to all the citizens. It was more than just Ward 8. But I know on behalf of everybody who was looking at a different outcome, thank you to the residents of Ward 8, who I know really led the charge. So thank you to everybody, and thank you, members of council, and I hope that we will roundly support this recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harris and Councillor Nixon.
Thank you. Thank you through you, Mayor Nuttall. Is this? Oh, how's that? Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'd like to echo what Councillor Harris said, and thank Mr. Green and Mr. Scott for a wonderful report. I'd also like to thank everyone here in the room. Councillor Harris mentioned the Ward 8 residents who obviously had a lot of passion and commitment to the cause, and also to everyone all over the city. It wasn't, it was certainly something that was resonating. It kind of started in that particular neighborhood, but we certainly heard from people all over the city. I think the outcome is wonderful. At the end of the day, we're going to have what we have been pushing for, or trying to, this council for, as we say, over 20 years, trying to get something happening and get the Performing Arts Center pushed. We're going to end up with a sports field, not right downtown, but pretty close to downtown, and that'll do nothing but enhance and a huge part of revitalizing the downtown core. So thank you all, and that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Nixon. I'm going to go to Councillor Morales now.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I'm going to split my my comments on this into 2 sections, because for me this is I like the motion comes together, because all these things are related, and they are all part of our strategic plan in one way or another. So for the Performing Arts Center, this one's an interesting one for me. It's not that it's not that I don't like the theater. It's not that I don't think this facility is needed. It's obviously always been about the costs. However, I'm going to say now, I'm going to take a calculated leap of faith. Not blind faith, but faith built on the work that has been done by staff, by yourself, Mayor Nuttall, and frankly, by the arts community. They're here. I know not everybody's here from the arts community tonight, but I've seen the emails. You've taken the time to send the emails. You've taken the time to send the letters. You've taken the time to send the work. So this isn't me trying to be wishy-washy. The vote at the end of the day is still the same. But it's a calculated leap of faith, because it's founded upon, the expectation that this is going to get done and it's going to be used properly. In terms of the multi-use field, that one I'm super excited about. And I just want to say this bluntly. I love the way Councillor Harris phrased it today. It's not a compromise field. Not to say the other one was, but what I love about this, and I'll say what you're too humble to say it, Mayor Nuttall, if it had not been for this process and bringing it forward where it was, very likely the attraction of the multinational sports company, we'll call it, would not have happened. One thing led to another. And that's sometimes what happens is the fact that we get headlines and we try to make those headlines be better, positive and constructive, but they get noticed by investors. They get noticed by residents, definitely by residents. And they make change happen. And so I look back at that, and would I have wanted it to go any different? Like, if I look at the specific details, maybe nuances. But do I think that the outcome of where we're likely going to be at with this great multi-use field happened because of the initial conversation? Yes. And I think people have to acknowledge that. I think I might have said in previous meetings, it's not a win or lose. It's just that the outcome. And the outcome on this multi-use field is positive. And I like the fact that we're mixing this motion appropriately too, because it's all part of the strategic plan. There's components in here that I'm excited about. There's components in this that I'm nervous about, but have faith. And so again, I want to thank just everybody who's been involved in this project, and let's really create legacies so the Sea Cadets as well and everybody involved can move forward.
Thank you, Councillor Morales. And I have Councillor Courser, then Councillor Kungle, followed by Councillor Hamilton, and then Councillor Harvey.
Thank you for that, Mayor Nuttall. Just a comment and then a question. Yay. We managed to sway some decisions, and we were managed to save our waterfront, and I'm super excited about that. I just wanted to thank everybody in the room that was involved in that. And I'm very thankful that as you know, that things ended up as they did, saving our naturalized space on the waterfront. But I do have a question of process. If I could get your attention, Ms. Cook. Okay, just to the amendment that was brought forward, we are on that, right? Okay, with the piece on that, sorry, just try to keep in everything within the legal lines here. The amendment that came forward regarding 1A, an approximate 45,000 square foot facility that includes both larger 600 feet and smaller 250 seat performance spaces. I'm just wondering if that was in line with, if that was thought of in line with the report that came back from the suggested community hub that was suggested through the architect. It was a cultural community hub. It was concept C or suggestion C, and that was for a secondary. It was for 600 seat performing center, a smaller 240, I believe it was, and then there was a third space included in that. And I'm just wondering if that was missed or if that had been well thought out with this motion.
Yes, so I can fill you in that Councillor Rietman and I had a number of meetings with the Arts Alliance, and they were asked, and I believe Marshall also had a number of meetings with folks from the Alliance there, and they had conversations about what was the opportunity at the waterfront, where there isn't as much land, versus what the opportunity is over at Central. And I believe, and I'm looking to Ian, I believe it's 30 organizations-ish, approximately, and I believe all but one or maybe all endorse the waterfront location. Yeah, so it was essentially, yes, they were informed of it, and it had overwhelming support from the different arts organizations, realizing and recognizing it wasn't going to be the same size as the proposed over at the former Fisher Auditorium.
Okay, I'm good then. Thank you very much.
Councillor Kungle.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Just a couple of comments. I'm supportive of the amendment. Thank you for bringing those components forward. In all, again, thanking those of you that sometimes the process by which we instructed staff to carry out is not staff's fault. It is the direction of council. So I do want to thank staff that also probably took a lot of the heavy complaints on this. So while I do appreciate and thank the public for using their voice, I do want to acknowledge that staff stood tall through this. And while we are in the fishbowl as elected officials, seeing some of the stuff online was absolutely inappropriate. So I do hope people continue to use their voice, but I do want to say that while this process unfolded, and it's lovely to have this report, that I think the respective staff as professionals in their role, I need to make that statement and say thank you to them for leading through a process that we directed them to. So on that, behind this, they've been doing a lot of work and really do appreciate, though, I think it's noted if people haven't gone through that very lengthy report summary, 3,307 residents were engaged during that period. And in addition to that, 3,101 surveys were completed. So it's great to have something in front of us that echoes kind of your interests, that is comprehensive in that approach. And thank you, although it's been a journey and quite emotional for some because these are important things to the community. It's nice to see our aspirations around bringing a theatre to life, supporting our cadets, also acknowledging other opportunities for sports and protecting our natural spaces, that it does feel like this is a good comprehensive direction forward, so I have no hesitation in supporting that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Nuttall. Just a couple of questions. I am supportive of the motions brought forward, so thank you very much for that. In terms of 1A and the retaining of HPA to put together the design for the new Performing Arts Centre, just the cost of $200,000. Just wondering, I understand when they were first awarded the contract, again, that bid was $228,000, but it seemed to me to be a much larger chunk of work because it included really looking at, you know, the business case and validating the needs of the community. And so I'm just wondering the costing on this, because to me it seems to be a smaller conceptual design, and some of that background work has already been done. So was that taken into consideration?
Ms. McAlpine.
Through Mayor Nuttall to Councillor Hamilton, yes, without a full scope of work, it is an estimate. However, we've included escalation for the period of time since the original contract was awarded. We, of course, are hopeful that the design work will take less time, given the consultation and less funds, given the consultation that has occurred, but we didn't want to leave the project short to actually complete the design work.
Okay, thank you. Inflation is unfortunate. My second question with that, if I may, through you, is just the timing of things. So I know that we're also looking at staff doing some due diligence there from a geotechnical investigations to make sure that area is appropriate for what we want to build. Will that be done first then before we actually continue to retain HPA to make sure that we could actually proceed with this type of construction there? Assuming yes, but I just want to make sure because the motion doesn't really articulate that clearly.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Hamilton. We'll attempt to do what we can at the same time, so they both progress. However, there will be aspects related to site due diligence that may impact the design. And Mr. Hughes is here, and he, of course, is more of a facilities, he is the facilities expert, not myself, but where feasible, we'll do them together to expedite the process, but there will be things that we anticipate the architects will need some of the site work, the due diligence work before they can finalize their design.
Mr. Hughes, would you just, anything you'd like to add, or?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall. No, Ms. McAlpine has it right. We will do what we can. We do know that from the work that's happening over at Heritage Park right now, we are expecting some surprises. So, you know, we'll do some minimal work that we can, but we may end up having to kind of reorient the building and the facility to avoid some surprises.
Sorry, thank you for that. That makes sense. I also, I'm optimistically cautious, but am aware that there could be some risks and concerns identified through those investigations. So just want to make sure that we're balancing both as we try to proceed. One final question in relation to item number 2, in retaining the consultant for, from the cash in lieu, for the costing of a multi-use sports field at the Central Secondary School site. I'm just wondering, again, the timing of that in relation to the announcement that we're waiting for from the major sports, I don't know what I'm allowed to say here, but in anticipation of an announcement that should or could be forthcoming, is this something that we are going to be pursuing regardless of that announcement being formalized, or are we waiting for that announcement to be formalized before proceeding with item number 2?
CEO Prowse, perhaps you could jump in on that.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Hamilton. I think we anticipate clarity in the near future, Councillor Hamilton, and I think that will inform the direction that staff take with this. Council effectively has given us two paths here. So my expectation is once we have some clarity, we'll report back to Council, at least via memo, to let you know the status of it and which avenue we are now on. At this point, we think we have some clarity in our near future. We're just not sure exactly the day.
Perfect. Thank you for that. I think it'd be nice to be kept informed of both as they continue. So thank you. And then just a final question in relation to item number 4 and looking at preserving the passive park east of the South Shore Centre, General Hayter Centre, South Shore Centre. That the overflow parking that we're referring to there, is that just intended to be on the cut grass area, or we're not proposing to put any hard surfaces there? Is that correct interpretation of item number 4?
If I can jump in on that, Mayor Nuttall, my understanding is it is to allow for the uses that have occurred on that area historically, which would be the overflow parking, I believe, ideally for Kempen Fest.
Thank you. No further questions. I'm supportive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. Councillor Harvey, and then Councillor Rietma.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I was just wondering if Deputy Mayor Thompson could repeat this motion one more time. All kidding aside, I know it's there's been thanks going around, but again, I would just like to reiterate thank you to all the work that's gone into this, not only from our own staff, but to Mr. Green, Mr. Scott. And as the Chair of Finance, I look at things with a dollar perspective. So to kind of put some light onto the dollar value of the work that Mr. Green and Mr. Scott did at no cost, if we were to farm that up to a consultant, it would be probably in the neighborhood of a very low ballpark of $75,000 and potentially as high as 150,000. So thank you again, sir, for, mind you, who knows?
Counselor, you just told a lawyer that he could have charged you more money.
The bill better not be in the mail, Mr. Green. No, and actually, he's a fine gentleman. I had the honor of being on the Spirit Catcher Committee with him last term, and so he's a long-time volunteer here in our city, so it was great to see that he was able to take the bull by the horns, because I'll be quite honest with you, I never ever would have thought that you would have agreed to anything like this. I think, too, this was a bit of a kind of a divisive thing, unfortunately, which is not the way anybody anticipated this to unfold. So I'm glad to see that I believe anyway, that we've probably landed in the best possible situation that we could that will provide exactly what all of the involved user groups are looking for and not have anybody pitting against each other as to why are you there, why am I here? And also, too, when you look at the budget that is before us now for the theater, I think this actually really does now paint a path forward that the theater could actually become a reality, opposed to when we were hearing numbers that were north of $100 million. I just couldn't fathom where we would ever be able to accomplish that unless we had some significant funding coming our way. I think the other thing to really highlight too is the reason that we've gotten where we were, although Mayor Nuttall was taking a lot of heat for some of this at the beginning, I think it was, and again, from someone that's been behind the scenes and had many discussions with the mayor and the deputy mayor and Councillor Harris about this, it really showed his leadership and how that, although 1 minute we're going this direction, how he was also then open to going down the middle and then seeing what direction that provides. And I think that just is a testament to his leadership, where he will look at things from a different lens. And I think that's why we're where we are today. And also to having a multinational company knocking at our door, that who would ever think that a place like Barrie would even be considered for what's potentially going to happen. So I just wanted to say thank you for looking at this at a different lens, because not always do leaders want to be able to look at things a little differently and be able to have a third party like Mr. Green come back and say, no, this is probably a better option, and this is what all the user groups are telling us. So I do applaud you for that, and I know we did have some good conversation in Calgary when we were at the FCM conference, and this became a little bit of a coffee table discussion. So I do thank you for giving me those 10, 15 minutes, and a few others kind of jumped in, but it was a good conversation, and I never thought that this was where we were going to be. So I think we're in a good spot, and I definitely will support it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rietma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Deputy Mayor, for bringing this motion forward. I guess I would say we've definitely come a long way on this one. And what it says to me is that it proves that if we all work together and if we all listen to each other, I think we can accomplish a great deal. And we've really, I think, come a long way that way. Mr. Mayor, your leadership and the hard work and the vision of Mr. Green and Dr. Scott, we've now got a path forward, and I think we've got a vision here that will work really well for us in the future. This motion is just a start. We have a lot of details to work out yet. We aren't at the finish line. There's details and there's finances to be worked out, but I think we've got a good start here, and so I'm very supportive of this motion. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm going to go to Councillor Kungle.
Thank you. Just a reflection I wanted to share, because it is quite a tipping point when we're talking a bit about actually committing dollars out of the reserve for the theatre. And some of you may be in the audience that were on the original committee. with Claire, and I believe, was it Councillor Harris? Jim, was it you that was on that and did quite a lot? Ian, who's in chambers this evening, and to anyone else that was on that theatre committee, I think last term. Sorry, was it Robert? Deputy Jude was also on that committee. Don't let me, you waited too long to fill me in. But I did want to say, I hope you feel good about this. I know that there was a lot of work and a huge vision tied to this, and so I think it's quite exciting. But I know your expertise, especially when we, early days, years and years ago, think back in 2019, 2020, conversations around acoustics to drawing a crowd and actually supporting our arts community. So Ian, I know we called on you in correspondence in chambers, so I'm pointing to you, but you've spent years of providing input and passion for the arts as well as others. So thank you for this, and I hope you're happy with the next steps.
Thank you, Councillor Kungle, and thanks for that recognition there. And certainly it's been a long and celebrated career, so wish you all the best as well. Before I go into my own comments, because I don't have anyone on the speakers list anymore, I wanted to thank Ms. Banfield and your crew for all the work that you put into the first try and all the work that you're going to put into the second try. And I know it sometimes feels like it's a step backwards, but I actually think that what we were able to achieve through this is a lot of different steps forward. And I'm now, if you can't tell, I'm transitioning into my comments on this. There's, I think, a lot to talk about as a community once this decision's made. And I think that the start of that consultation on the different items that are being brought forward happened, quite frankly, when Marshall was going through all the different opportunities that existed. I remember being out at Queen's Park, and we were walking through Queen's Park, and a lady came up to us and said, you remember this, Marshall? And said, you shouldn't put a sports field over at Allendale Station Park. And then she said, but you shouldn't allow it to be overgrown, and our band group should be able to practice there. And I remember walking back to the vehicle and saying to Marshall, there's so many different opinions and ideas on this that you've got a heck of a job ahead of you, because I don't know how you're going to do it. Well, you did it. And it took a lot of moving puzzle pieces around. But I don't want members of the community to think that moving those puzzle pieces around, number one, came at no cost, because I think that some of the divisions that were out in public and some of the things that were said, I think they have cost. They have cost, perhaps in some ways, some of the credibility and relationships, both around this table, but also out in the public, in terms of maybe sometimes not getting the information prior to saying some things. And I think that has a cost in the community. And I think it's going to take, this is a first step towards putting that back together, but it's going to take some time. The second cost is that I don't want anyone to think that there is no cost in moving the sports field over to the old central site. It isn't a pick up one and drop it off in the other place, and those things cancel each other out, and we're just going to move forward. I'm not going to get into it right now, because some things around the council table, until they're complete, we can't actually explain the cost or explain the potential sale or purchase of land until they happen. It's just the way it works in municipal governance. But there is going to be a cost. There's no question there's going to be a cost. But as I sit here, I think that that cost will actually be worth it. And so, yes, there's a cost to this, and yes, there's benefits to it. And yes, there's value to it. And I think that's where, when I had the opportunity on quite a number of occasions to speak to Marshall about it, and just realizing if we move the Performing Arts Center location it opens up a site that's beside a siren, and you know who doesn't care if there's a siren going by? A bunch of people playing a sport. Who does care? Somebody who's trying to sing a beautiful song. And then, you know, thinking about Sydney, Australia, and I know that probably sounds like, what is he talking about? But the idea that we have this performing arts center placed at the core of our heart of our city, right attached to our lifeblood, Lake Simcoe, I think says so much about our community going forward. And that's just such a massive benefit. And I think that the arts organizations realized how big a benefit that is when they said, we're willing to take less benefits for the city to have that benefit. And that was a great conversation that was being had as well. I'm certainly supporting this motion tonight, and I don't want anyone to think that I have any perhaps negative view on any piece, but I'm going to leave one warning sign that I'm still going to vote for, but one warning sign on this motion. And that is, I do have some concern, and sometimes we have to take 99% and not 100, and I get that. I do have some concerns with the extension of tarmac to the west of the South Shore Centre, because when I sit there, and I've driven there and sat in my vehicle and looked at it for too long, when I envision what that extension will look like, there's a bit of a curvature in both the road and in the pathways that go by. And as the tarmac will come to the west of the current parking lot to allow for the cadets to have a parading square, drill square, I do think it'll change the complexion and the view of that area substantially, because it will be a lot of green gone and a lot of tarmac there. And although I don't love that, it's the best of all the options that I've seen. And so I'm going to reluctantly support that piece of it. The final piece is down to Allendale Station Park, which I think is probably the right way to do it, because it's what we started with. You know, no one on this council determined that it should be used for recreation or culture or community events. That wasn't this council. It wasn't last council. It wasn't even when the Bay Cats asked to go to the waterfront. It was when I was 3 years old. That's when it was determined. And it was determined by folks who managed to secure the waterfront for you, the people. And I think that they had incredible foresight, because there was a lot of liabilities that were being bantered about what could be under the property and what had happened there in previous times and the fill that had been put in place, etc. And they took the step to secure it from CN. But that's the point in which it was deemed to be for recreational use. Like that was it. Since then, it's been deemed to be for recreation, for community purposes, and I believe for culture was the third one that was identified inside of the purchase and sale agreement, and then actually put on title for the property back at that point. So we fast forward 30, not quite 30 years, maybe actually just a bit longer than 30 years, 35 years, and we're having a conversation in the community about recreation, maybe a little bit of culture on the waterfront, and certainly community. And I think that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And I think we heard that in our conversations we were having about this, where we had a whole bunch of people saying, let us do this there, and a whole bunch of people saying, don't do that there, right? And all I can say is at the end of this entire conversation, you know, doing recreation there would not wreck the waterfront, okay? Is it its highest and best use based on everything we're seeing today? No, but it wouldn't wreck the waterfront. I think that what could wreck the waterfront is if we don't deem something to happen specifically at this location, which is what this motion's doing tonight. If we don't deem it for purpose, it'll be 6 years and someone else will have a big idea and it'll come forward and it'll create a lot of friction and division inside of the city again, as it did 6 years ago, as it did this year. So I think the right move is not just saying no to something, but it's saying yes to something. And that yes is really falling in line with what the recommendations were inside of the report we received back from Marshall, with one caveat, and I want to be so transparent with you on this because we had concerns and we had a lot of Facebook posts in a 24-hour period on this year. The field has been used for Kempenfest for eons. And that's not new. That's been happening all along. And I think that this may have highlighted that's happening, but it didn't start this year. And so to say to Kempenfest, no, you're going to have to find somewhere else to put 500 or 600 vehicles, I think is a stretch for me. And so clearly delineating inside of the motion that that's going to happen, clearly delineating that there's going to be an area that is, I think, 2 of 14 and a half acres, if I'm going on memory right here. 2 of 14 and a half acres are going to be cut, and every single one of those trails needs to be accessible. I remember being told about all these trails that are going through the center and all of these people that are going through, and I couldn't get there because of my foot. I was on Peggy. And that's not good enough for us. That's why we have all of our waterfront parks having these accessible pathways. So we've got work to do. I'm glad that it is where it is, and I will finally say this, that on the idea of a multi-use sports field and the attraction that it's now created for us, I really, really hope that it happens, because a lot of people have said around this table they want it to happen, and I wouldn't want it to fall off at any point. But I guarantee you that most people in this audience and many, many people in the community in May and June, because I had these conversations and I can pull out the fun emails, would not have envisioned us getting to where we are today. Just wouldn't. Where the park's being saved for natural things, where we are getting a multi-use sport field, where we're looking at actually building a performing arts center that we've talked about for 30 years, where we've got the cadets moving after 20 years, where just today, Councillor Nixon was finalizing some conversations with the Baycats on looking at Queen's Park, so we're hopefully going to have something coming forward on that, which is also inside of the report from Marshall. We just didn't envision, self-included, being where we are today. And I want to take this final opportunity to say, Marshall, thank you, because it is literally, your brain and your approach that managed to get a whole bunch of folks that were on different sides, and even if they thought they were on the same side, they didn't agree on what should be happening in certain places after, to get into a position of agreement and community, quite frankly, where everyone, I think, felt like they were being heard and being accepted. So my final thank you will ever hear from me, I'm kidding, my final thank you for the evening on that, and I think that we should at this point go to the vote, because I told everyone to be quick because there's a Leaf game. Good. Agreed. Thank you, Marshall. So we're going to take the vote at this point, and I will ask all those in favor, and it carries unanimously. That's the amendment. You're not done yet. On the main motion, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. So this was a really difficult thing. And just a few things, and I think we got to look at this, from the start to the finish. So at no time when this was presented would staff ever recommend something that was environmentally wrong with the proposal of moving the Sea Cadets and having the parade. So there was going to be studies done. So that was first of all. And then saying the first vote, I believe, was 9-1 when this originally come forward. And then the following vote, after probably close to 500 emails, was, the first vote was 10-1. The following week, after all the emails and everything, was 9-2. So this was a convinced group by the report we received from staff that nobody around here was voting. And there was a lot of members of council, that took some really, I'll say like inappropriate comments, and, there was actions taken on some of the members of council. But this was the information that was presented, and it all started with the Sea Cadets, the safety of them. And look, I met with residents, and there's one in the audience that, believes in the environment and all that. And we joked about it because he was worried about losing the opportunity for the rowing club and stuff. And then when he realized that the parade ground, it was like, then it was full press. It was emails, phone calls, and it was fun. And I learned lots from it. But I just think people got to know there was no ill intention from this group, to endanger the environment, or it was ruining the beauty in some people's eyes. But the only reason why the vote is changed tonight is because of the information Marshall presented, which give us a better outcome. When we were voting originally, to some people who didn't believe that it was the right thing, but this is a better outcome from this city on all aspects. And that's why the vote is changing tonight. There's no flip-flop here. We got to remember, 10-1, 9-2. There was no swaying, let's be honest. But it was the presented information of this report and all the people, all the stakeholders that worked together to get to this. So I thank everybody's work. I thank all the time. I met with Councillor Hamilton, Councillor Corser, Councillor Harris was at every event. I think he had one every night for 2.5 weeks at a different part of the area. So I am in support, but I just think we got to realize that the decision was made on the information presented to council. There was no ill feelings towards what we were doing. We actually believed in it, and I think the vote showed that. So I will be supporting the motion as amended. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments on the main motion as amended? Seeing none, all those in favor? And it carries.
Separate report, please.
Separate reports being requested by Councillor Harvey. Madam Clerk, is that noted?
Yes, Mayor Nuttall.
Beautiful. And we did our announcements and our inquiries earlier on, so I'm going to move to the circulation list for October 2nd and October 9th. Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Members of the public, just before you leave, if you're planning on coming to the city council portion of this for ratification, it's not next week, it's 2 weeks from now because of Thanksgiving. So don't show up next week because we won't be here, okay?
So on October 2nd, on the circulation list, and I do apologize, and I hope staff can forgive me for this, as we had a ton of things. So it's A2 24-1002, and it's the urban design, Ms. Banfield of Bayfield, and I'm just looking for a little bit of clarity on that. And maybe we can, maybe it's more appropriate to move it off to another meeting, and then we could have that conversation. But is this, I think it was in February, we had a direct motion without notice, and it was around the OP and stuff like that about the Wellington Street master plan, which I think went all the way from Ann and Donald to Bayfield, where when I look at this report, now it's called an urban design plan, which I'll be honest, I don't understand the difference between a master plan and an urban design. But it's laser focused on Bayfield opposed to, because I think it was the day we had the proposal for the Wellington Street Plaza. So is this
Yeah,
the
Deputy
same or
Mayor,
is this different?
No, you're correct. I believe there was a request for both Bayfield Street and for the corridor on Wellington West, I think we called it.
And there was some money associated to do that. So I just didn't know if this had now taken that over, and so maybe it's best if it went to an infrastructure meeting, or and maybe just for some clarity, sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Tons of moving parts today, I think you can imagine.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to the Deputy Mayor. So it still is both the Bayfield Street corridor as well as Wellington Street. So the memo does refer to both of them. And the approach is proposed as well in there. One was with Bayfield Street to add to some of the EA work that's being done, and then Wellington Street doing our own, a separate study. And it's, as I said, it's not necessarily about community design or urban design, and it's just more about the master planning piece to it. That being said, you're right, at the time, we were waiting to see if the province would change the official plan designation based on the private properties submission. They did not. Of course, we didn't find that out till end of May-ish, and then that's why we're kind of updating council now. But I hope that's some information, or as you said, you could refer it to a committee if you wanted to talk more about it, or we can take it offline.
Yeah, we can take it offline. I just, like I said, I wanted to make sure that, I caught the headline and I was going through it and stuff, and I know that there's, on page 7 of the report, it's got the Wellington Street master plan, but I didn't know if that was the same as we talked about and stuff. I was looking for a little bit of clarity on that. So that's fine. If I have any questions, I can take it offline. Thank you.
Any other circulation list? Councilor Morales?
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. And I'm not referring it to committee, so I'm not trying to start a discussion, but thank you for holding it, Deputy Mayor Thompson. Those two analysis on the Bayfield and Wellington will be critical to the development of the city. Leave it there, no more sentences, but I know that you guys kind of flagged these when we had some stakeholder feedback, and so this will be really important.
Thank you, Councilor Morales. Any other items from circulation list? Seeing none, we're going to move to adjourn. So it's 8:08 p.m. and we are adjourned.